Week 2, vector components. Components means the pieces that make something up. So what we want to do is we want to be able to take vectors and we want to break them up into pieces. In the last video, when I was doing vector directions, I was talking about north, south, east, and west. This time I'm going to do directions in a slightly different manner, but I think it'll make sense to you. So right here, I have an XY axis, just like you would in math class. You have the x-axis that goes horizontal, and you have the y-axis that goes vertical. If you are over to the right on the x-axis, that's where the positive numbers would be. In physics class, we call that a positive Fx, or a force in the x direction positive. On the left-hand side of the axis here, I have a negative x, Fx listed. And the reason that it's a negative, of course, is because it's going to the left, and that's where the negatives go. So the positive and negative only tells you direction. The fact that it's horizontal is what makes it an x. And they're both forces in the x direction. One in the positive Fx direction, one in the negative Fx direction. Along this axis, I have the y's listed. You'll notice at the top here, it says positive Fy, which stands for a force in the y direction going up, because that's where y's are positive. Down here, it has a negative Fy. F is for force in the y direction. Down simply is a negative value. So if you took this arrow right here and you wanted to break it up into pieces, there'd be no reason to put it in pieces because it's already pointing straight across. That happens to be the x direction. And because it's pointing to the left, it would be a negative Fx, or we could assign a value to it and a direction. So we would say Fx was approximately negative 3 newtons. Now you notice I just wrote Fx. The fact that I put a negative indicates that it's going to the left. And then the 3 newtons is how big it is. So this is a vector. It tells me both direction and magnitude. This guy right here does not need to be broken up into pieces either because it's going straight up. Straight up is a y. So this would be a positive Fy. If I wanted to give it a numeric value like I should with vectors, I would say to you that Fy equals a positive. And if this was 3, I would probably call this one 4 newtons. And again, I've already given you the direction because I told you it was a y. The fact that it's positive, you would know, oh yeah, positive y's go up, so that would be an up arrow that was 4 long. Now, what happens when you have something like this that's a diagonal line? Well, when you have a diagonal line, you need to break that up into pieces. If I were doing directions and I asked you which way that was pointing, you would say southwest. So in other words, it has a southern portion to it and a western portion to it. Well, we're not going to use south and west. We're going to use x's and y's. So I could break this up into one piece, which would be Fx, and it would be negative simply because it's pointing to the left. And I would break it up into a second piece, which would be an Fy, which would also be a negative because it's pointing down. So I can take this diagonal resultant and I could break it up into an x piece and a y piece. And again, based on the length, I could, given the length of this baby, say that, oh, it looks pretty close to the length of this one. So I would say that Fx equals negative 4 newtons. And the Fy part of it, I could say Fy equals -3 newtons based on the length of the arrows. Again, the direction is determined by which way it's going, negative or positive, just like an XY axis. What if we had this guy right here? It's a diagonal line. We would break it up into vector components or pieces. It has a Y piece and it has an X piece. The Y piece is going up, so it would be a positive Fy. The X piece is going to the right, so it would be a positive Fx. So vector components just means taking a diagonal line, if it's not pointing directly in the X direction, or directly in the Y direction, and breaking it up into pieces so that it had an X part and a Y part.